Hey, what's up guys? So in this video I want to talk about the Radenso Pro M and if it could be potentially a better option than the Uniden R3. Now it sounds kind of crazy because this is usually the one that we're talking about with the best performance in the market and all that good stuff, a lot of useful features. This one though does a number of things better than the Uniden does, and so depending on what your needs are, it could potentially be a better choice. Now I've done a video recently talking about the Radenso RCM, the remote version of the Pro M. Similar idea, just different form factor, and in that video I talked about how I liked it, but I didn't love it because it was lacking in certain areas in terms of refinement. Well, since then, Radenso's been hard at work updating the detector and improving things to address a lot of the issues that I saw, and a lot of those changes are going to be also carrying over here to the Pro M, which again is just the windshield mount version of that detector. Plus some of the things that this one didn't have, like Ka-band segmentation, that's coming over here as well. Now, the reason I wanted to go ahead and do this video is the fact that Radenso just dropped the price on this detector. It used to be $549, they've now dropped it down to $449, which means it's just $50 more than the Uniden R3. And again, depending on what you're looking for, there's a number of people who are actually liking this better than the R3. There's no detector that's perfect for everybody, of course. Everything has its pros and cons, and so in this video I want to talk about the primary differences between the detectors, and I've got a lot more information on my website. 5 Minute Fridays, I can only do a couple things, so let's jump right into it. So starting off in terms of range, yes, the R3 is still the best performing radar detector on the market. If you look at any sort of long range detection test, the R3 will typically be the one that wins the shootouts. The Pro M doesn't have quite the range of the R3, but it still does very well in the real world, and so it should do a good job of actually protecting you from tickets. Now, what it does much better than the R3, and probably its biggest claim to fame, is its BSM filtering. This has the best blind spot monitoring filter out of any radar detector on the market. It's the only one that's capable of filtering out Hondas and Acuras, which is incredible. Those are really difficult to filter out. The R3 can't do it, and if you've got a bunch of those, it can be quite annoying. I have heard one report of a person who said it false to one Acura, but other than that, almost universally, in my experience too, it's not falsing to them, which is, again, pretty fantastic. Now, it's not perfect. I did have a false earlier today against a GMC SUV, and so yes, it does still false, but it's definitely going to be much better than what we're seeing with some of the other detectors. Additionally, for those of you guys who are encountering maybe false laser alerts on the R3, I'm not, but I know a number of you guys are. The Pro M is going to be doing much better in terms of laser filtering as well. Now, for those of you guys who need MRCD detection, we've talked about it on the R3, how it's currently in beta. It's being developed over here. On the Pro M, it's already available and it's really good. Currently, there's the Pro M and the Redline EX. The Pro M does a better job. It does a better job at filtering, and it also has a ramp up as you get closer to the source, so the signal goes from strong to weak. It doesn't just alert full tilt. The Uniden doesn't have all those same capabilities. Maybe it's not quite fair to compare it because, again, this is still in development. Over here, this has had a chance to really develop and be tested and mature, and so the MRCD and MRCT detection here is a lot better than what you'll find from the competition. So for those of you guys that need that, that's also something else to consider. Now, there's a lot of smaller things as well. I've got a whole list of pros and cons on my website that you can take a look at, but just kind of running through a couple of them. There's things like how the Uniden has an RJ11 port right here, which means you've got both power and data communication, so your power cable can have a remote mute button or lockout button, which is nice. With the Radenso, it's just a simple on-off switch. You don't have as much functionality in the power cable. Speaking of the mute button, with the Uniden, it's right here on the front, which is great if you have your radar detector mounted high by the rear view mirror. The mute button and lockout button is right there, as opposed to the Radenso, it's mounted up on top, so it's a little bit harder to find, and because the buttons are pretty flat, they're a little bit more difficult to find by feel. Additionally, if you go into the menus of the detector, with the Uniden, you can go forwards and backwards through the menu, whereas the Radenso, you can only go forwards, and if you skip an option, you have to cycle all the way back. The button feel is better. The display here, it's a color OLED display, so you have multiple color options as opposed to the Radenso, which is always red. There is sometimes some burn-in that you'll find with the Unidens. The Radenso doesn't seem to be susceptible to that. The Uniden will show you multiple signals present, whereas the Radenso cannot, but the strength meter here goes from 1 to 9 as opposed to 1 to 5, meaning this one has a more precise and incremental ramp up for a little bit more detail and situational awareness in that regard. And so, yes, pros and cons to each system. The Radenso, of course, as you can see, it's going to be much smaller than the Uniden. It's also got a ticket-free guarantee if that's important to you. So if you get a ticket running the Radenso, they'll cover the cost of the ticket for you. That's not the case of the Uniden. They don't cover court costs or hike to your insurance or anything, but that's a nice added bonus here. And the Uniden, of course, it's $50 less, but ultimately, if you're looking for a detector that has really good performance, maybe not necessarily the best ever, but still really good performance and is also well-rounded, giving you really good BSM filtering, I think the Radenso is a really great choice as well, and that's kind of one of the biggest appeals of it, is it's going to be doing a better job here in terms of filtering. And so I'm definitely taking a look at, or I'm wanting to run this guy more and get even more familiar with it. But I know a number of people on RDF, we've been talking about it quite a bit. This one is definitely looking very appealing relative to the Uniden. Again, pros and cons to every system, and no one detector is going to be ideal for every person. But if you're looking for something with good performance and filtering, the Radenso looks like it actually does a better job at that than the Uniden, which has even better performance but not quite as good filtering. So trade-offs, right? And then, of course, the fact that Radenso just dropped the price $100, bringing it down to $449, and that was actually the reason I wanted to go ahead and do this video. Yeah, this is looking like an even more appealing option now, plus even more updates that are coming to address a lot of the issues that I saw before. So really good stuff here. And I guess the last thing that I wanted to mention is, speaking of the price drop, Radenso just dropped it, but anybody who bought this detector within the past 30 days, you can let Radenso know and send them your order information, and they'll actually credit you back the extra $100. That's actually pretty amazing. I mean, how often do you see a company drop the price and like, oh yeah, we'll go ahead and refund you the difference if you bought it within the past 30 days? That doesn't typically happen. So another cool thing here with Radenso. So anyways, just wanted to share a little bit with you guys. Hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please ask down in the comment area below, or I'll also link you down in the video description to some discussion on RDF, because there's been quite a bit of discussion this past week about these two detectors and how they compare. So awesome. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.